Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to another great day in paradise on the internet. I'm here with my beloved colleague, Rishi, and today we will be going through and giving feedback to some both questions and projects of people on Pioneer. And we'll be going back and forth as much as we can, trying to make this informative and funny and fun and convivial. So with that introduction, I guess I should say one final thing. I think it'd be exceedingly rare for you to come across this live stream and not know what Pioneer is. But if you are one of those people, I will teach you how to do the airplane instruction video on how to buckle your belt. It's worth checking out. Pioneer.app. It's basically it's basically a neat way for you to get started with your project and make it into a company. Whole a lot of scenes. Too much for us to describe on this brief introduction, so I suggest just taking a go at it, and we'll leave it mysterious at that. With that, Rishi, let's get started.
Excellent, thanks, Daniel. First up, we have Mirr, being built by Jack from Ireland. Jack actually went through Patch, an accelerator run by one of our pioneers.
That's right. And so what I'm going to do, if appropriate, is I'll just share my screen. Is that right?
Go for it. Yeah. Take a second to look over the landing page, and then I'll give you his. He has a particular question, but I think you might end up getting to it without me telling you what that is.
Great. Is the screen visible here?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's great. So here we see Mirr, and I mean, for anyone watching, I am going to try to be as kind of hypoxic and as dumb as possible as we go through this, because I think that's the experience most customers are going to get when you're using your app, and definitely I think is something you probably should consider when developing software. So with all that being said, seems like it's a mirror. It's a physical product. I don't really have a sense for why I would want this. And I'm now scrolling to get myself excited. You're pitching me about the team here, but that's way too early in the process. Overall, I would say, this landing page is interesting. Very nice to be built on caffeine, less so sleeplessness. But I would say the main issue here is, this just image is way too small. I would consider making it significantly larger. There's all sorts of fun goodness going on here with some WebGL triangles or whatnot. Yeah, that's cute. You kind of don't need that, in my opinion. And I'd probably just focus on putting images like this further up there. And the meet the team stuff is good. I would just put it much lower. I mean, you're hiding really the best part, which is the demo video, or at least a couple of images. It strikes me, knowing a little bit about what this does from past visits, this could actually be really exciting to people. Everyone has mirrors in their home. And everyone, I think, would probably benefit from just the kind of snackable information this could offer. We just need to communicate it better. Now, what's going on with the question?
So Jack's question is, for something like this, for something like hardware, it's the visceral experience of actually interacting with it in real life is just so much better than seeing it on a website. And his question is, I imagine this question kind of generalizes to hardware in general. How do you best present the use cases for something like Mirr, a hardware thing on a website?
It's a great question. I mean, look, at the end of the day, I can try to pontificate here, but the nice thing is we could just look at the experts and mirror what they do. This company has almost become iconic in, well, both funny ways and practical ways for how well they do this. But the website will load at some point this year. At the end of the day, although Peloton is often mocked for placing people in extremely upscale homes, showing their homes more than their workouts, you kind of get a very cool sense of you can visualize yourself on this product, and it's very aspirational. And I imagine you could probably do something similar with the Mirror. People looking at it, I don't think you need to overthink this and go whole Uniqlo VR, visualize it in the real world stuff. I just think getting together a bunch of good-looking friends and having them literally stare at the mirror, I think would make for a fine landing page.
Sounds great. All right, next up we have Sentrei.
Great. So right off the bat, I mean, seems like a great landing page. I recommend, by the way, small aside, if you're going to do a window within a window, don't let it steal the scroll. That's a small thing. It kind of looks good. The fonts look nice. The colors look decent. Now I'm kind of glossing over it without really consuming what it does. Okay, it seems like it's a better Substack. And so I think this kind of actually works just as an early pitch. I mean, if you really want me to poke hairs, I think this is a bit too cute, and I don't think you need a browser within a browser. I'm sure there are better ways to communicate your point. This is totally hiding it for whatever you want to say. Also,
you said the better Substack is a great sort of framing in itself, but I mean, Substack says, you know, we're better medium. Why does that pitch work?
That's interesting. I mean, I find that the symbols and metaphors are like an interesting way to just compress a lot of information. So if you're familiar with Substack, I get a lot of entropy over to you by saying better Substack in 2 words. The downside to it is, you know, they are often overused, and, you know, your audience may not be familiar with what Substack is. I think that highly unlikely for someone who's a potential customer of this, but that would be the reasons not to go for it. Founders often will say, well, I don't want to say the other name of the company because we're not exactly like them. We're different because insert reason X, Y, and Z here. That's something to be celebrated, but you should really focus, in my opinion, on kind of simplicity in the pitch at the cost of specificity.
Makes sense. So this is built
one
by
final
Sean.
thing before we get to the question. I would never have lorem ipsum text on the homepage. I mean, it's literally a writing platform. You go for a little bit of writing yourself there. I mean, I mean, any type of uncopyrighted book would be better. Please go ahead.
So this is built by Shun Kakinoki in Japan, and he has actually he actually just pivoted from a different project. So he has this very general question. He just kind of wants general feedback on this new thing that he's working on. Do you think better Substack is worth building?
That's interesting. I mean, it's always better to be building better things. Now, I think the question is maybe twofold. And founders, I feel like, only ask the first. So the very popular question now is like, how are you going to make it better? And it's neat to think of all sorts of things. But then there's a second question, which is, what is kind of the availability cascade, or that's just a stupid word for, you know, what is the exciting idea that's going to get the Substack writer to switch? They may be completely disjoint. Like, it might be that what is actually better about this behind the scenes maybe is just more responsive, easy to use. But the narrative that gets people to switch over is that, I don't know, is that it allows for better independence. Commissions, you know, it's interesting to try to, it seems like the strategy here is to undercut it. You know, again, I think that's super rational. So what I would do is I mean, it's, I think, not that hard to literally send an email to 1,000 people with WordPress blogs. You could write a Python script in somewhere between 3 to 6 hours that finds them, and just email them and just ask them, you know, what would be exciting to them in migrating off of that. Or you can email Substack people, but that's probably what I would do. Because I actually think that second part of it, the exciting narrative, may be more important than the pitch. That's probably much more useful advice than me trying to make up specific reasons I don't use Substack.
Makes sense. Since I imagine people watching want you to do this as well, what happens if you click live demo?
It takes you to lorem ipsum, which is
that was the lorem ipsum. That.
I mean, I guess this is like one of the sites. So I guess that's why this is happening to us. I just find my brain really shuts off. Since we are in the year 2020 and not 1650, I don't read Latin. And so I don't understand what this says.
Makes sense. Sean may also find that the real words may help if he actually sends this to those people using WordPress.
100%. Look, one final thing I should say, the internet is large and it's getting even larger. So I do think people get stuck in these winner take all dynamics. There probably is room for many Substacks, just like there's vBulletin and WordPress. And there's Hertz and Avis. So it's not clear to me that this is going to be like a super monopoly. So food for thought.
Great. Next up, we have Bluu, being built by Oscar in Colombia.
It's a marketplace that connects manufacturers with resellers without worrying about inventory or deliveries.
Actually, just going to give you his questions. I think it'll be interesting to talk about as you are exploring his landing page. He is just having difficulty kind of framing what he's building. How would you explain what he's doing?
I'll get back to you once I figure that out. By the way, I mean, it is kind of weird to have your YC video on the landing page. It seems a tad, nervous. I would probably remove that. But it's helpful to have this here because we can understand what it does.
One framing that he sometimes uses is Misho for Latin America.
Is what? Meeship?
Misho, Meesho. It's a YC company, I think, from India.
Okay. We can use, if we solve for this X, we can plug it into that Y and then understand what the company does. Okay. I guess it's fine. By the way, the aesthetic of this website, very quintessential Indian, and I don't exactly know what's causing it, but that's a different question. A couple of things. So by the way, I mean, just on the homepage, you could just retitle the YC video here. This homepage does very much look like it's, my suspicion is what's going on is you're trying to scale, we kind of see this here with the WhatsApp link fairly manually. It was just onboarding people. And this website, I mean, it's titled English 1. I would fix that. There's just like a lot of simple things you could be doing to look slightly more professional, which would serve the purpose of the website, which is I imagine, it seems like so I imagine the English one is just for investors, but even then I would tidy it up a bit. How would you pitch this? I mean, if this was predominantly an investor website, which seems like it's what it is, I mean, I guess it'd be interesting to think about the first person pitch sometimes, I think, is a helpful frame. So, something like connect with people that could sell your goods in 2 clicks or something like that, as opposed to, describing what it is in abstract might just be a bit easier. Can do this dark science. You don't need to repeat the name. You can say connect. You can just say connect with sellers. I guess inventory, something like that. Or you could reverse it and you can say, or you could say something like, find great products to resell online. That could be pretty good too. There was a company, I don't think it's well known though. Forgetting the name of it. There was an American company that did this. That may be a better metaphor than Misho. Bit different. They were helping. Anyway, I'm sure you could find it. They were helping stores, small stores, figure out what to stock in their store. It's fairly adjacent. Anyway, it's my advice on a tagline.
Yeah, it's great feedback. One thing that I find a lot of marketplaces will do where they have two totally different use cases they're trying to explain is they'll kind of combine them. And I think that's what's happening here with start selling in 3 simple steps. Is step 1 is actually starting with like the buyer's use case, and steps 2 and 3 are the sellers. And it doesn't make sense to anyone.
That's a beautiful point. Yes, this is written from the vantage point of none of the gamers and from the game designer's viewpoint. So be good to tidy that up.
Great. Next up, we have 2 actually monetization related questions. I actually just sent you credentials to log in to Emote. So you can poke around that product a little bit first.
Interesting. It's like a high packet loss type of day. Okay, so out of your head onto the page. It's a writing app that I definitely understand. I wonder if commit's the right word. Use is probably a better word. Just why emote actually, or just no text. Now that I think about it. Cool. It's like a streaks thing for writing, and I can log in. While this is loading, I could probably do some caching over here. Never. Okay, cool. So now we're inside, and I'm going to click on this because it looks like a button. And I'm going to say, hi, my name is Harry Potter. I live on, what is it, 4 Privet Drive? Great. Cool. Oh, what am I grateful for today? I am grateful for high-speed Okay. Cool. End session. I've begun my ascent. That's nice. Good framing. Feels like the tallest mountain should be on the other side, though. Small net. Anyway, what were we going to say? Other questions?
So Eric, who's Emote's founder, feels like he has to educate the market right now on the benefits of journaling. And so that's making him unsure if he should start charging now or later.
I wonder if those questions are somewhat disjoint, right? Like, even if you try to charge later, you will have a bit of a growth problem, which is this general problem for all internet products that are kind of spinach products, where it's kind of good for you, not particularly enjoyable. I happen to love spinach, but you get the idea. How do you propel people to do them? I think online education struggles with this a lot. All the gym accountability apps, and journaling certainly seems to fit that bucket. So, we can just like look at what successful models are, and so, there's the whole gamification route, which we won't re-explore here. You could look at Strava or Duolingo for that, or hope, Pioneer aspirationally. The other approach is to just showcase really great examples of what happens when you successfully journal. Like, I really think the pitch of, I don't know who it would be, but like Lance Armstrong journals every day, Michael Schumacher journals every day, or whatever your goals are. I think those could be quite good. Now, if you could get those people to actually use your product, that would be really, really, really great too. So that you may want to think, if you're building this style of company, you kind of have to operate initially on a deeper kind of cultural substrate before advancing to like actual distribution and growth and just how you position it and how you make it really exciting. And I do think, I guess Tony Robbins is really the art of this. He'll tell you like, if you want to trade like, the best trader in the world, insert name here, then you should, do this difficult thing. So you may want to take a page out of that book. In terms of, that's really just for the landing page, maybe. In terms of, and for your ads, in terms of charging, I definitely would. Like, I think you kind of have a very clear product roadmap if it turns out people really want this. So often you don't want to charge when you just really need to get feedback from people on, whether they want it or what variant of it they want. And there's things around the edge you can fix here, maybe making the prompts a bit more gamified, whatever, analytics. And there's a bunch of stuff built out here, which is neat. But I think it'd be quite helpful to charge people so that you could buy traffic, which I suspect you'll need. I think it'll be really hard to grow this organically unless you build some great viral feature. Which is hard because journaling seems like a fundamentally private activity, maybe a leaderboard. Anyway.
Great. Next up, TabTrader. And this one is sort of a question downstream of Eric's question, which is Kirill is now thinking about introducing a paid plan, maybe $20 a month. What's the strategy to introduce a payment plan after being, a pricing plan after being free for some years? And he specifically says, I don't want to end up like Evernote, IFTT, etc.
That's very self-aware. And that's great. I mean, it's great to be unsatisfied with Evernote, which I think is still a multi-$100 million company. So the question is when and how to price this app.
Mm-hmm. And specifically, I guess, how to make that transition.
Oh, worrying about grandfathering. I mean, yeah, I mean, when to start charging is interesting. My advice, contra, I think, to the very popular kind of, early stage startup advice is you don't necessarily have to start charging on day one if you're trying to very quickly, if you're trying to like figure out what exactly to build and how to refine. Sometimes that refinement revenue is more useful than American dollar revenue, or in this case, cryptocurrency revenue. So you should kind of decide when you feel like you have a good thing and people really, really love what you do. That's when you can turn on the spigot. I wouldn't overthink that. I think there's an adjacent question, which is how this type of thing could make money. I presume you're gonna, your dream would be to take some type of take fee on the trades. I don't know if you're doing that. And that probably has a large regulatory conundrum associated with it. If this is more of just like a stock viewer app, and I'm not really able to assess here from the demo if you can execute trades in this thing. Watch a video. Let's find out quickly. Yeah, it seems like this is going to be a non-informational video. Anyway, if not, then, I mean, look, the upside for you is that we know, of course, in the public market world, Bloomberg is actually no one really knows, but, a $10 billion revenue company, I think, as of maybe 2019. And it's predominantly informational. I mean, you can use it to execute trades, and I think many people do, but it's predominantly you get it for the information access, not for the millisecond it'll save you with trades. So you could probably do something like that with crypto. I do think no one's really assembled the information in a really nice, elegant way that isn't an exchange. So it's really just a hodgepodge of PHP websites, and maybe a really nice, powerful tool would be nice there. I would actually, usually don't worry about what the incumbents would do, but I do wonder at some point what Bloomberg would do. And maybe your contrarian take would be they're not going to touch this. It's just too weird for institutional investors. But if you do build a super high quality app, you can charge customers a lot. I mean, I think a Bloomberg terminal is maybe $10,000 a month. I'm just rattling that off the top of my head, but I think directionally it would be there. So to answer the question more succinctly, Juan, I wouldn't, when you feel like, people really, really love your product, which is, a subjective measure, but I think it has to be, I think you can start charging. And then two, if you're not going to charge per trade, it does seem like you execute them here. So maybe that's simpler. If you execute the trades here, then, it's pretty simple how you make money. Just have a take fee on it. So good stuff.
Great. Next up, Unmumble.
By the way, there's many ways to make money that I'm sure he's thinking about that we don't have to cover here. It's quite possible, like Robinhood, that it's commission free and you make more money off float and selling exhaust. There's you could just clone what happens with real markets. Okay, cool. This seems to be a language learning thing. I guess the thing that's going to be top of mind for anyone coming to the site is, why is this different from the many other products that are available for language learning? And the counter positioning here, I think could be a bit sweeter or stronger. Nothing extraordinary and nothing out of the blue. And more than often, it is these simple and straightforward ideas that change the world. That's not selling me on why this is going to be a great way to learn. And I do think you really need to weaponize your landing page, and just how exciting it needs to be. And you should equip yourself with words that, especially for a task like language learning, which is a bit of a spinach type of product, that will get people excited. So the largest thing I would fix is how to make it more exciting. Well, let's see how this is actually different, and then maybe we can update the website. Clicking this button does nothing, so we should probably want to fix that. Okay, seems like I meet other real people. So that's a huge deal. So great. Okay, this could be great. This could be great. We, of course, know from science the real way to learn language is to immerse yourself in a city. So maybe it's like something like multiplayer language learning. And maybe that's too cute. You might say, stop with the game metaphors all the time. So maybe, what else would you say? Language learning. Community, maybe it's something like find your new language community. The word community has been overused quite a bit lately, so I find it's gotten watered down like a tea bag. On the fifth pour, I don't know. I'm sure there's a better word here, but something like that. Just make it please really clear that the whole point of this is that you meet other people. And then, you can have some text here about like, learning alone, doesn't work, provably doesn't work. You could include some study link that proves your point. I'm sure you can find.
Do you think in a case like this, it's important to talk about Unmumble's own outcomes? Or do you think the research, the theory is enough?
That would be strong. If I assume there's not much of that, but if you have that, that'd be great. So you can say Unmumble helps people learn, whatever, 30% faster than Duo? No, Duolingo. Something like that. By connecting you with other real people to speak to. Some people don't like putting the competitor name flat on the homepage. They think it's a bit too on the nose. I think try it, see what happens. If it doesn't work, change the text.
For some reason, I find with language learning, it's the one place where I tend to be like, well, you kind of need to address the elephant in the room.
Because there is a giant.
That's basically that's basically everyone's first reaction to language learning is, okay, well, what about Duolingo? Zach's question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Zach's question, by the way, is so far they've tried social media, YouTube, posting on forums for growth, and they've also had a little bit of word of mouth growth. but they're trying to figure out how to grow a lot faster.
Oh, well, it's so clear. This, I mean, to me, that this is very naturally a viral product. I think you could say, well, actually no. The whole point of this is you don't know anyone who speaks Korean, so that's why you're coming here. So you have no Korean friends. But I would say this seems like a really great thing to just invite a friend to if you're going to learn a language together. And so some positioning on that I think could be really effective. Learn a language together, and then you kind of go meet these people together with friends. Actually, I think it helps reduce a lot of the social awkwardness on like a group Zoom call if you're pods of two, as opposed to just a hodgepodge of strangers. And that, I mean, that feels extremely viral. So I would just do that. You're not going to beat Duolingo at spending money on ads.
Great. Next up, we have Debt Collect. I also sent you credentials to sign in there.
Interesting.
Note that the URL to sign in is actually a different one.
Did you use Slack for this? Oh, there we go. Okay. Modern debt collections, modern automation for debt collections. Yeah, I mean, obviously there's a very large arcane industry, and it is just a holding place landing page. It's very cleverly masked URL.
While that's loading, I'll actually get at the question that he had. One of his two questions, you kind of just got it. Bob says he's actually in a very niche industry, an estimated $13 billion annual industry, but he's hoping that the underlying tools that he's building here can be repurposed more generally. His question is an industry like this just unfit for VC investment?
His theory being it's too small?
Yeah.
Wait, the debt industry is $13 billion? That's not true. There's no way. I mean, maybe he's some niche of it that he's targeting. Isn't like a third of the country in debt? Anyway, I guess this is debt collection.
The debt collection, yeah, the debt collection,
yeah,
which I would imagine is a very small percent.
Right, obviously, otherwise, right, a lot of things wouldn't work. Okay, so first of all, I would like to, is it Bob?
Yep.
I would like to commend Bob on being one of the very few founders to think their TAM is too small. Usually the opposite problem exists, but that's earnest and great. And I'm still waiting for the creds. I don't, I mean, I do think TAM numbers are basically an excuse to do whatever you want. Like if you want to get excited, you conjure a large one. If you want to not, you conjure a small one. I don't know how large the I don't know, the marketplace for, or the market for private airport terminals is, but there's like 3 players there that I think dominate it. And they just make a lot of money doing that. So it could be one of those situations, I mean, where it'd be fairly easy to get a lot of coverage, or fairly easy to get just a very lucrative business going. I think at the end of the day, you're not going to build I'll repurpose this IP to adjacent industries. Maybe that'll happen, but I would not plan for that. That usually does not happen. At the end of the day, like a company like this is going to really sing for its supper based on its go-to-market motion, less so on the software. I mean, it's not Google in that sense, and that's fine. I think most software is in that bucket. Cool. I mean, this is workflow software. I can critique it, but it really doesn't matter. It's really about go-to-market motion. I could say this is all kind of weird and I don't like the aesthetic of this, but if salespeople are using it, you can ignore everything I said. Wow, this URL is incredible. So I mean, have you used
In that
Salesforce?
case, yeah,
Yeah.
in that case, I'll get to his other question, which is about go to market. He has a waiting list right now with about 30 agencies who are ready to start using this one when it's live. And he's trying to figure out if he should send them regular email updates before the launch, or he just wait until the bugs are ironed out. Basically, how often and when should you engage your waitlist for something like this?
It's a great question. And of course, the rationale you'd want for not over engaging that people like is, well, I don't want to burn them and it's harder to reactivate than to get. The counterpoint to that is um, that tends to lead people to just not engage. I mean, your default as a founder is not going to be to engage because it's like generally unpleasant and you kind of always know the issues your product has and it will never cease having issues. So, what I would do is I would siphon off maybe 5, 6 of those and I would tell them ahead of time that, they'll get reduced pricing or just be very nice and kind to you. Take a bet on you, you're getting started, you're, whatever. And just tell them you'll be pestering them with a lot of stuff and you can just kind of iterate with them and then maybe slowly expand that group. I would not get, just going back to the earlier question, particularly worried about the TAM being small. There's also, I don't know how it would manifest here, but non-consumption can happen in many different markets. I think it would have been very easy to just assume Uber will become a taxi medallion company, not the global logistics hub that it is today. So I wouldn't worry about that, and I would kind of go for it. Where you would want to kind of worry about like TAM sizing stuff being really small is, I mean, when it's minuscule, when there's literally 100, $200 million floating around, and it's fragmented. That's kind of tough. The one final thought I should add here, just on the venture financing stuff, I think we all get really affixed in Silicon Valley of building, moonshots, and for the most part, that's great. That's why we have like, Zoom that we're all using now. But um, there's a lot of great businesses that you just do $50 million in revenue every year, and that's kind of it. And I think if you manage to get by with only selling a small share of your company, maybe that's fine. So you may want to think about whether that'd be a fine outcome for you. It's food for thought.
One last question, going back to the wait list. Do you think that sending screenshots, say, here's what I'm thinking about building, what do you think of this? Basically actively collecting feedback in that development process helps with conversion? Or do you think it's kind of thing where users can just be like, don't bother me?
That's interesting. I think if you can get someone, it's interesting to think of why is it the case that, this concept of influencers seems to exist throughout society. I mean, from soap opera shows to Instagram, like this stuff seems to really work. And I think it works because people get bought into certain narratives and stories about people. You really like the story, whatever your cup of tea is. Oh, The Rock is working out. That's really great. That's inspiring. And you want more content from that person. Insofar as much as you can become a kind of Instagram influencer to your early users, not in a vanity sense, but in a sense of just like they're really bought into your narrative and the fact that you're working on it, that tends to work really well. It's also a bit of a secret on how to fundraise. If you really have nothing, you can just, profess derivative and just show the rate of change people are making. This works particularly well in one of two forms that I recommend. One is if you're going to do it over email, at least solicit advice, and then you'll have to kind of implement the advice they ask for. If you don't, it just becomes kind of like spam. But it really has to feel like an interactive game for them. Like The Rock is asking you questions from his Instagram feed or what have you. And then the second thing I would recommend that works far better is instead of badgering people prolifically over email with screenshots, which feels very comfortable to do from the comfort of your home, physically seeing them in person, pandemic permitting, or over Zoom, I think is much better just because there's much more effervescence built from that than from an email. And I think you actually, although you may fret about it before, in hindsight may enjoy it a bit more after. So two approaches that I think could work.
Great. Next up, we actually have a quick one that the project here for this one is actually less relevant. Katie's wondering, should I get a full-time job and keep building my startup on the side, or should I try to raise a seed, raise some pre-seed, get some money so I can focus on my project full-time?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, so the real reason we have companies like the recently filed for IPO DoorDash, Airbnb, Stripe, literally all of these, Elon is a bit of an exception here, maybe Zip too, is because the cost of building software is, really cheap, which allows people to quit college, quit jobs, and still kind of do something on the side that generates interest for an investment. I think if you try to, we won't dig into what you're doing. We'll just answer the question maybe at a theoretical level. If you try to raise money really when you have nothing, it is a bit hard. If you're in a blessed enough position where your burn rate is low enough and you have just a little bit of savings, and where you can afford to spend a couple of months, kind of, eating your favorite flavor of instant noodles and just like working on building something out, that is ideal. I have not seen, we've seen a lot of people, I think, that try to have the fractal attention span. I'll work on this on the weekend and the weekday will be for work. But I find the mind doesn't really like those segmentations, and it's not like every day you wake up with like a different TV channel to run, and you often can't quite control what you're going to focus on, and you really have to flood yourself with your startup, which requires, a commitment of 3 to 6 months. So one strategy could be, I mean, if you can raise money and people are throwing at you because of your pedigree, it's worth doing that. I also think that could go south if you raise too much money, because now you've gotten overly committed to something without really validating it, and it's a bit hard to change, and you staked your entire, sense of, your id, your ego, and your super ego on a C corp that was just a side project. So that could be bad, to an extreme. However, if you can raise a little bit of money, great. If you can build up enough savings to just work for 3 to 6 months on passion project, that's actually, in my opinion, ideal. And if you burn through it, and I know it's a bit fearful to like burn through money and not save it, but I mean, it would be the better education than I think pretty much anything else you can get for just how to run a business. And I think you'd be much more attractive to rehire, given that you've had that in your resume. So that's kind of how I would think about it. Almost regardless of what you're doing, there's one final caveat, which is, the ACE, which is people will say, gosh, but I can't just do some software or some, machine learning. I need to be, moving atoms around, not just bits, and I need a lot of money up front. That's tough and probably a topic for another conversation.
Thank you. 2 projects left to review. First off, we have market metrics. And Nick wants general landing page feedback. We exchanged some emails after this, and so once you poke around a little bit, it's an interesting specific question I think we can dig into.
Automate the KPIs, charts, and dashboards that take hours away to create for your stuff. Okay, so it's like a Chartio dashboard builder type of thing. There are a lot of companies that do this, like a lot. There's a bunch of open source projects that do this. And so you always kind of wonder what's going on here that's going to be different. And that's really what I'm not getting from this landing page. You could even say, you'd say, well, we're trying to capture people that don't know about all, the different competitors. Fine. I say in that case, this is still not exciting enough, or as exciting as it might theoretically be. This may be one of those companies. You go ahead, please.
So Nick says that target market that he's focusing on is B2B digital marketing agencies. And one thing when you were changing emails was I was like, well, it would be great if I could just sign up. But if you click try for free, it'll take you to a type form. And what and Nick's claim is that the type form, he tried self-serve. He had too many people who were churning, going to other products. And so his argument is that the type form lets him qualify the lead to make sure they're going to be a customer that's actually going to retain. what do you think of that argument that better to have the type form, higher retention versus and by the way, he says that works because he's able to spend time upstream in the funnel on sales calls so that when they get there, they're more likely to convert.
That's interesting. I mean, I think there's a common question around all lead qualification kind of engines, the extent to which you view the difficulty of the system and the questions you ask as a strain, as a test on the quality of the lead. And so you'll often have in a larger organization, what I've seen happen is the sales folks very much, just want to get the longest, most detailed number of questions and nuances because it reduces work for them afterwards, and often demand of the marketing folks on the other end that they just like get more top of funnel, get more top of funnel, and it's a funny tension there. So, answer is, I think, always going to be somewhere in between. I would say practically speaking, though, because that answer was maybe more helpful if you have like 100-person company, not a one. So practically speaking, I mean, it really depends. If you're seeing a lot of success from this angle, great. But if we're talking about at the end of the day, like if you go through the entire, MQL, SQL, activated customers, if we're talking about like 3 or 4 people, I would consider just trying to sell it a bit more. I do think this might be too much of a test. I also think, by the way, you can make it kind of a bit more fun now that you have a specific market focus. That's great. I would, like, it seems like this means you don't have a market focus. So I think it could be helpful to like just traditionally a company would set up multiple landing pages for like different markets. If you're just focused on one, maybe simpler to just make one landing, this particular landing page extremely targeted at your audience. That's probably the lowest hanging fruit I think you can do, is just these wordings. And then, by the way, an interesting middle ground we've certainly experimented with that I'm sure that we know many others have is you could even have the try it free, just take them to like a static HTML page that is a rendering of the interior page just to get them a bit excited so that they fill out the type form. That's a very easy middle ground, I think, to hit. Oh, previewing the future.
Great. Yeah, this is the last project. The Senator's question is a general one that I think a lot of projects have, especially since we ask players on Pioneer to describe their project in one sentence. Yeah. How do you explain deep tech products so lay people can understand them?
Okay, we can skip the landing page and just focus on the question, and maybe try to answer it afterwards. By the way, this is super creepy. I don't know why, but there's just, I think it's because it's because this is a reflection of the hair, but it looks like there's hair in like next to the fovea. Anyway, I'm not going to look at it. So it's a great question. And I think it's worth calling out that it's actually important. A lot of people say, well, it's deep tech, who cares? At the end of the day, both for your own happiness, you want to be able to explain to your friends and your parents what you do. But also, like, for fundraising, you are going to need to learn to speak very simply. Often the people who can see this best are just not basically everyone you, because you're stuck and mired in the details, as you should be. And, Pioneer, and we kind of spend all of our day, just doing this and retitling companies and trying to simplify it. So I do think we've gotten the muscle down quite a bit, but literally anyone, I think will do. It was 2009, and I was going to pitch YC for the winter 2010 batch, and I was working on a search engine, and I just wanted to get better at honing in on how to pitch it. And so I went to a relative of mine. It works at a law firm. I just went to every single cubicle in that law firm, and I endlessly pitched what I was doing. And the beginning of the day started with, I have no clue, say it again. And by the end of the day, I had a completely different message. So I really think that the solution here is really simple. It's just you have to go out and talk to people about what you're doing, and they'll kind of ask them to just regurgitate, what they think you do. And, you'll slowly start triangulating, I think. And so if we were to do that service for you, Jesus Christ. Sorry. There's a lot. It's machine learning software that converts ultrasound systems into diagnostics and non-robotic navigation systems focused on the brain spine in order to provide paramedics and first responders with an easy and to use mobile diagnostic system. There's like the number of proper nouns here is really outstanding. I'm sure there's a very simple way to explain what this is. I mean, is this just a machine learning model that finds brain and spine injuries? Any takers? I mean, I think that's possible, that that's what it is. So
I'm trying to poke holes in that and failing.
You may just want to say it's AI that detects spine and brain injuries. Now, one final thing we should say is often, I think when we go back and forth with people about their updated company description name, again, the common feedback there is, well, that's not exactly, because insert 25 reasons here. That's totally fine. Your company description is an invitation for a conversation. And if someone says, I don't understand, or are you like X or Y, that's great. You have them engaged. The worry is that, you will never engage them in the first place. Of course, taken to an extreme, you can't, go, totally Theranos on this, but I'm sure people will find a healthy middle ground there.
Great. That was the last question. A few people have asked me, how do I get my project reviewed when we decide to do things like this? Actually, we just emailed a small random sample of players in the tournament. I think we'll invite a lot more next time. Maybe perhaps post on Frontier. If you are not in the Pioneer tournament, you should join. And hopefully we will feature your project next time we do one of these.
Yeah,
Daniel?
The rumors that we were favoring people who were wearing Pioneer hats for review are false, I believe. But people were wondering, and they're false. So the hat will not help you, but it will shield you from the sun.
Now, where do we get these hats? I mean, they are nice hats, though.
Great question. That's a great question. I'm just checking different websites here. I see that it's not on gap.com. And anyway, I recommend going to store.pioneer.app and clicking through and purchasing a hat, really only if you're in need of a hat or in need of signaling to the world that you are a part of a small crew that, hopefully years from now will change the planet. Anyway, Jackson, thank you for being the silent pilot as always. Rishi, thank you for being an excellent co-host. We'll see you next time.